So for my second video, Sam, I will be working with the Equinox Audiometer. And the way you turn this audiometer on is that you'll turn the power strip on underneath the table. It will make a click, click, click sound. You'll turn the laptop on and then you'll click on the Equinox suite. Now, one downfall of this audiometer is that it does not have an option really to where you can do a listening check or a biologic check by yourself. The only way I was able to do a biologic check by myself was that I pressed the continuous on button, which was reverse in this case on channel 1. And then what I did was I set it to where I knew where my thresholds were. And then I just swept across the frequencies. So the typical frequencies that we test are 250, 500, 1,000, 1,500, especially for hearing aid candidates, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 6,000, and 8,000. And the 3,000 and 6,000 are really good for to know whether or not someone has had noise exposure. And the way you can test it by yourself is just sweep across the frequencies and having to go back and forth between the tester side of the booth versus the patient side of the booth. And you'll do this in the morning before to get the clinic up and running. But you do have to go back and forth, and so I did this for both the right and left side. Now I know my own threshold, so that's why I did a biologic check, versus a listening check is basically if you don't know someone's thresholds, you can just sweep across the frequencies. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. Now one thing that you do need to do while you're doing a listening check is that the way this audiometer is set up is that it has a little button that the patient can click whenever they've heard a stimulus or a pure tone. And a lot of times either the button gets will stop working for whatever reason, or the wire itself within that connection will actually be broken. So sometimes you have to make sure that that is working and just do the continuous on and then go into the side of the booth and make sure the button is working. And really that it's better to do a listening or biologic check if you have someone else with you during the morning. If they're not busy with something else, then that's an easy way to do that. The other thing that I need to talk about is for assessment, if you're testing someone within the booth. So the different transducers for channel 1 will be on the left-hand side, and for channel 2 will be on the top right-hand side. So the way you'll look at this is that there's phone for the right, phone for the left, bone conduction for the right, bone conduction for the left, free field 1, free field 2, and just free fields are just being presented through the speakers. For the insert phones for the right and insert for the left. If you'll notice on the channel 2, it does not have bone connection. Typically, we don't mess with channel 2 unless it's for masking, so we just leave that for masking. So it doesn't have that transducer option. Now the input, you can change the input to be tone, warble, narrowband noise, and then white noise. So those basically go from more frequency specific to less frequency specific. And both of those are either on the top left, kind of like the left hand side or the right hand side, either for channel 1 or channel 2. Now, the other way to go about selecting and presenting the stimulus is that you can present either with this key right here. Let's see. Or you can present the stimulus clicking on this button. One thing you have to be aware of is if you're going to go up and down in intensity, you have to make sure that you're not clicking the button accidentally. So it's a little bit easier just to use the arrow keys for changing. Arrow right and left are used for changing the frequency, versus arrow up and down are used for changing the intensity. So let's say if I was testing a patient, and let's go ahead and press the S button to store. You can either, in order to store, you can either use the mouse, or you can change it to add unmasked threshold, not heard threshold, masked threshold, masked, not heard threshold, or you can do copy bone thresholds to the other ear. And you can do hide. Or you can right click. So it's typically easier and faster just to go ahead and click the S button for store whenever you get the lowest sound that can be heard by the patient on average 50% of the time for 2 ascending runs. So the next thing that I need to talk about is changing between pure tones versus warbled tone. Again, that's going to be right here, or right here. And then the way you'll change your microphone is sorry, that's talk forward. Let's go ahead and go to speech. Let's go back, sorry. So the difference between talk forward and talk back is that talk back is basically when you're always going to keep this on, is to try to get the patient to talk to you, and you can change it up and down. It's going to be on the left hand side of the screen, and it's going to be for monitor is going to be, you can basically listen to whatever you're presenting to the patient. So if you know that if you're presenting a tone, and you can hear it on your side being presented to you. So that's kind of like a nice feature, a nice option. And you can change the intensity with this little arrow button. And then also for input levels for microphone 1, you can change the intensity to either up or down. Change it up and down for mic 2. And then you can change it up and down for CD1 or CD2. Then there's also, for the input, you can change kind of like a little bit on the top hand of the left hand screen. You can change it mic 1, mic 2, CD1, CD2, speech noise, wave file. So wave file, SpawnDB, and I don't know if you can see this, but my little VU meter will be talking whenever I am talking. So if I need to do monitored live voice for whatever reason, then I can do baseball, hot dog, ice cream, playground, etc., etc. And those will help me in order to do that. Just monitoring the VU meter and making sure my volume is supposed to be where it's supposed to be. Now, in terms of like the display of this particular audiometer, it's going to channel 1 is going to be on the left hand side, channel 2 is going to be on the right hand side. And you can change the you can see SRT, intensity, masking, test type, aided versus wordless. You can do wordless 1, wordless 2, etc., etc. You can also change SpawnD A and SpawnD B. And then you can also change in terms of like what's being presented, basic auditory test for an adult, basic auditory test for the child, BK SIN, VA testing, that's pretty much it. Fruit tree passage, etc., etc. Now, if I wanted to separate the audiograms, I could click, there's another button on kind of like the right hand side, but a little bit further down, and it'll just change it from 1 to 2. This is really nice to be able to, if you have the overlay audiograms, then you can see the differences between the hearing losses for each ear, and it's kind of like nice in terms of like a counseling tool to be able to see that versus if they're separate, then it's a little bit easier to see sometimes and be able to actually diagnose for like what's going on with the right ear versus the left ear. So you can change the talk back button 2 different ways. There's, if you click on talk back and then change it up and down, and then talk forward, you can either click the button and then you can do kind of like a sliding scale. So that's kind of nice. Versus, oh yeah, if you hit the microphone button, then you can also hit talk forward. It's just whatever you're comfortable with. In terms of pure tone average calculations, there's 2 different ways in general that we can figure out this one if I go back to one audiogram, one audiogram instead of 2 audiograms, it can either be on the left-hand side for the right or right-hand side for the left, and it will tell me. Versus and again, that's the same even regardless. The other way to find pure tone average is you can, if you're on the speech screen, it will have your little audiogram on the bottom right hand side, and basically what that is that it will calculate the pure tone average for the right, pure tone average for the left, and that's basically it helps you determine what are your threshold measures. So speech recognition threshold versus what's your super threshold measure, so what's above threshold. And if you need to present a word description score or word you can use this information to kind of like easily give you what level or what you need to calculate at or above. In order to mark the thresholds, you can just click the store button or you can use the mouse, whatever works for you. Most of the time it's easier just to hit the store button. And if you need to change this to, like, if they didn't respond at a certain threshold, you can use this for either bone or no response, etc., etc. One interesting thing about the Equinox Audiometer is that the way it's set up is that it has high frequencies, but unfortunately, because I don't think it's set up with a super oral headphones, in this particular clinic it's not set up that way. But you do have the option for it if you got circumoral headphones calibrated. In terms of the increments, you can go up in either 5, 1, or 2 dB steps, and that button is going to be on the left-hand side of the screen. Again, very small and a little bit hard to see. If you're doing dynamic range mapping, then that is a good thing to be able to use it for. If you are doing extended range, so like let's say I'm at the maximum that this equipment will allow me to test, I can hit the E button and then test it. However, that being said, it will not allow me to test until I've hit that max. So I can either do unextended or extended range just by hitting that. And I believe you can also... Nope, I think that's the way to go. And then... The interesting thing about this audiometer is that it actually helps you with masking. So there's a little, what looks like a little mask on the left-hand side of the screen, and there's a masking help on and off. You can click it on, it'll help you mask, versus a automated masking. And those help you to calculate how you need to do masking. So in terms of the response method, there's going to be, like, let's say you're testing a patient, either you can have them click the button, like I said earlier, or raise their hand. In terms of well, I went over this a little bit earlier in terms of like when I was doing a biologic check, but for the continuous, you can hit reverse, and it will be continually presenting a tone, and you can see that with this little flashing button. Versus what I'm hitting is the simultaneous, and both sides are being presented. Versus alternating. alternating is it's just presenting to one side, presenting to the other side, present to one side to the other, etc., etc. And then simultaneous is like both sides are being presented. In terms of erasing your results, there's a couple different ways you can do this. One of them is you can click on the threshold and just delete the threshold. So I right clicked, delete threshold, and then I can do that. Or I can just delete the entire curve, right click, delete curve, delete the entire curve, or you can kind of like exit out up here. In terms of accessing the speech material, there's going to be a button on the top left hand side, and as you can see, it's still kind of like on monitored live voice. So and in terms of actually getting to the speech material, there's a couple different ways. So either you can do microphone 1, microphone 2, CD 1, CD 2. So like if I was going to click CD 1 versus CD 2, and then wave file 1, and I can change the speech materials right here. And there's numbers, words, sentences, multiple syllabic, single syllabic, just a lot of different tests that we can run. One of the interesting things about this audiometer in particular is that besides having those little masking functions, is that it will have a patient monitor. Let me exit out of there. And then phonemes. So like, as you can see, there's like the little speech banana or hearing banana in this case. And there's also the severity levels. So like, let's say you had inserted this person's audiogram on this information, then you could either print this information out, or you could do the speech banana and use this to counsel the patient. So that's really interesting. And I think that's about it for my video, but the last thing you need to know is the appropriate CPT codes. So if you're doing air, bone, speech, and your basic testing, you're going to do 92557. And the other thing that you can do is if you also do tympanometry, and which is not required, it's a separate CPT code, but it is a good way to get good extra information about what is occurring in the middle ear system. That CPT code is going to be 92567. And yeah, so 92557 is air, bone, speech recognition threshold, word discrimination or word recognition score. And VRA code versus CPA code. So if you're doing visual reinforced audiometry including speech, you're going to do 92579. If you're doing CPA audiometry or play audiometry, which includes speech, you're going to do 92579. And then if it does not include speech, you're going to do 92582. If you only test for the SAT and SRT, it's going to be 92555. And if you do picture pointing, you're going to do 92583. If you do SRT and word discrimination score, you're going to get 92556. So realize that is a lot of information. But thank you for watching my video about this particular audiometer. And in order to close out, you can exit out and make sure that you're shutting down the audiometer in the reverse order of how you turn it on. So thank you for watching my video and have a great day.